Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Marchant Johnson, and I am so thrilled that you are here for the closing event of Ready for the Right Guy. And I am here with a wonderful special guest tonight. I love him, and you're going to love him too. And that is the amazing PJ Dixon. Welcome, PJ.
Thank you, my beautiful friend. I'm super duper glad to be here for you and all these amazing, beautiful women that are coming through your summit. You are a remarkable leader for women, and I am super honored and grateful to be here to support you and all of them with all of their juicy, delicious questions. We're going to make tonight rock. It's going to be so much fun.
It is going to be so much fun. And we have a really fantastic topic tonight because, ladies, I want to really end this event on a high note. And we're going to talk about 7 things men love about you as a woman. Because I want you to end this event feeling really great about yourself and feeling really great about the possibilities for 2019. This is a super fun topic, and we're going to get into it in just a moment, but just a couple of quick announcements, and I'm going to make a more formal introduction of PJ, and we will be off and running. But first, just for a few announcements. So glad you're here, those of you who are joining us live. This event will also be on replay tonight and tomorrow. That will complete the Ready for the Right Guy event. And so thank you so much to all of you for joining me. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your presence here, for your attention, for your feedback. So many of you have written to me and thanked me. So many of you have upgraded to the VIP package, and I'm having an opportunity to visit with so many of you one-on-one in that respect. And I really want to keep in touch with you even beyond the event because I have a lot of fantastic things coming. So just letting you know about all of that. Also, at the end of this event, we will be taking some Q&A. So as your questions come up during the event or as you're thinking about them, we recommend that you put your questions in the Q&A box because that's where we as panelists can see your questions easiest. And also if you put them in the chat box, then everyone can see them. So if it's something a little bit more personal or you don't want to share your name or anything like that, as far as the Q&A box goes, just the panelists will see that. So that's the best place to put them. And also, remember to keep your questions short and concise because if you write a big long story or a paragraph, we're most likely not going to take them live because it takes too long to read them and kind of get the sense of what you're talking about. So keep them short and sweet and you have a better chance of us taking your questions live. We apologize in advance for those questions we don't get to, but for those that we don't get to, I'm going to take some of those up in future events and or videos. And one more thing, for the opening event, those of you who are here, remember that for those of you whose questions I chose, you got to email me your address and I sent you out a card deck, Ready for the Right Guy card deck, which is beautiful custom artwork that I had done especially for me, for this audience. And it's beautiful artwork on the front and then important questions for you to ask yourself about your love life on the back. So that's just a little incentive to participate and engage and ask your questions because we love interacting with you in that way. So with that all being said, we're going to dive into our main topic in just a moment. But first, I want to make a more formal introduction of my wonderful friend and my partner here tonight, PJ Dixon. So just a little bit about PJ because he's awesome and you're going to love him and we're so lucky to have him here with us. PJ is a lifelong motivational speaker and an international transformational coach who focuses on results. Despite his disability, which was expected to take his life by age 7, he chose to live and to live well. PJ truly lives an extraordinary life, sailing, outdoor skydiving, indoor skydiving, trapezing, ziplining, hiking, mountain climbing, snow skiing, water skiing, aqua jet packing, and the list goes on. He's a former wheelchair athlete, international traveler, amateur watercolorist, founder of 2 nonprofit organizations and 4 disabled sports programs, a published author, 10th degree black belt, martial arts and women's self-defense instructor, and a meditation teacher. Additionally, PJ has been inducted into the National Hall of Fame for People with Disabilities and was nominated to carry the Olympic torch through Tucson in 2002. And PJ's website is pjswisdom.com, and we're going to put a link to that on the replay and everything, so you can check out more details about PJ. So PJ, welcome once again. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super glad to be here. And it's fun to listen to your own bio and you're like, wow, I did do that. Yes, I do live that life. It's amazing. And I love you so much. From the very first time you and I actually had a conversation and you invited me onto one of your other summits, there was just a connection between you and I. You have such a beautiful heart. You're so kind and so dear and so loving that it's my honor to be in your presence, in the presence of your audience tonight.
Well, thank you, PJ. That just was really sweet and really touched my heart. And I feel the same way about you. And ladies, I was telling PJ, one of the reasons I invited PJ is because he really speaks from the heart. And one of the things you may not know, for those of you that haven't been on my previous events, is over the last 3 years or so, I've produced these events called the Man Panel, where I interview all male experts. And so in my work with the Man Panel and some other things I've done, I've had the privilege of interviewing over 100 men over the last few years. And I've had the opportunity to have conversations with them on camera, like we're having now, and also off camera. And I've been able to ask these men the biggest questions that women ask me, and some of the things that I want to understand more deeply about the male way of thinking or maneuvering through the world. And one of the things that I've gleaned from this experience is what we're going to be talking about tonight, is some of the things that men have shared with me, sometimes in our conversations on camera or sometimes off, about what they most love and appreciate about women and the influence that women have had in their lives and what really means the most to them. And of course, for the context of this conversation, we're speaking a little bit in generalities. But I'm just telling you, these are really important things that go beyond kind of the obvious of what you might think that men appreciate about women. So with that, we're going to jump right in. We'll talk about these 7 things. Then I'll just remind you a little bit about the VIP package, because I've had a few questions come in. And the VIP package event special will expire when this replay expires, so time is running out. And then PJ and I will take your questions. Okay, so with that, I have some slides. Let's see if I can get them up and running here, and we will be off and going. Do you see my slides, PJ? Is it a thumbs up?
Thumbs up. We can see
All
them.
right.
Everything looks good.
So our topic, as I mentioned today, is 7 things men love about you as a woman. So when we think about this, of course, what do we typically think about? We think about the fact that men are visual creatures.
Awooga, awooga.
And that the obvious is they like looking at women, they like women's physical attributes, they like and appreciate our bodies, our shiny hair, the way we move, walk, etc. And that is true. But we're going to look a little bit beneath the surface and talk about some of the things, like I said, that men have shared with me, and PJ is going to share with you from the male perspective, some of the deeper things, or maybe the less obvious things that men appreciate about women, and some of the things that you might not even recognize or appreciate as being such beautiful feminine attributes or gifts, and some of the things that you bring to the table in a relationship without even really doing anything. It's just by being who you are. And so I call these like your superpowers, like beyond the obvious, those things that you might not typically think of in terms of what a man might be looking for or noticing. And we're not denying that men are visual creatures and that they appreciate that. No, we're just saying there's more to it than that. There's more depth to it than that. And our hope is that it will, as we talk about this, it will help you to appreciate your own gifts more and to move through the world with more confidence and knowledge about your own value. Because those of you who know me and my work well know that one of the tenets of my work is for you to make all of your decisions about your dating and romantic life from that place of really knowing your own intrinsic value. So we want to just remind you of some of those gifts and some of those things that you might even not really recognize or you might take for granted. So PJ and I came up with these together, and we're going to kind of switch back and forth here. So the first one is, you make him feel. So what do I mean by this? So in talking to so many men over the last few years, one of the things that many men have shared with me is that in the world of manhood, for many men, they spend a lot of time in their heads, in their minds, thinking, analyzing, mapping out the next step, and competing in the world in that way where they're just thinking strategically. There's a lot to be said for that, and a lot of really important things happen in the world because men are able to kind of zero in on and focus on things, be goal-oriented and outcome-focused. What sometimes happens, though, is that a man becomes somewhat disconnected from their feelings, and they're not always in touch with their feelings, they're more in their head. Now, some of this can happen due to some socialization in terms of how they were brought up, in terms of what they were taught, you know, kind of like big boys don't cry kind of idea or that kind of thing. So a lot of men have learned to suppress, ignore, or not be in touch with their emotions. And so as I've talked to men, one of the things that several of them have shared with me is that when they're around a woman who is in touch with her feelings or her emotions, or who is expressing her joy in just what she's passionate about or about her life in general, or is more free or able to be in touch with her emotions, it can touch a part in a man's heart where he can sometimes reconnect with his emotion, and he can begin to feel things in a different way and not just be solely in his head, but he can kind of connect with that feeling part of himself. And so many men have shared with me that that is so meaningful to them because they do have emotions, they do have feelings, contrary to what sometimes people might believe. Men have very deep emotions and very deep feelings. And in fact, their feelings can be very tender and can be even hurt very deeply. But them being able to reconnect with their feelings as a result of their relationship with the right woman can be one of the gifts that you bring to the table. So that's one that's been mentioned. PJ, you want to add anything to that one?
Absolutely. I really like this one because if you walk away with nothing else from tonight, this one encompasses everything. All human beings are driving towards a particular feeling. They want a particular feeling. And as men, we really feel like there are real social norms and social standards that we have to meet as a man for us to feel like we're in our masculine, for us to feel like we're in our power, for us to feel like we actually have value. And so when a woman shows up in a way that allows us to feel safe, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, that allows us to feel safe, all of a sudden we feel like this one woman is profoundly different than all of the other women because she's the one woman that we can feel vulnerable with. And we don't necessarily like to be vulnerable. Men really don't like to be vulnerable at all. But if we find a woman who allows us to feel like we're safe, all of a sudden we can start to touch that emotion. When we touch that emotion, there is a depth that you might not have seen before and a connection that strengthens and multiplies between the two partners. It's absolutely beautiful. And this really leads nicely into our second bullet point.
All right. And this one I'm going to let you lead off on, PJ. I love this one too.
I love this one. Men love your inherent femininity. Not that you're trying to do something, not that you're trying to be something, but your inherent natural femininity. Yes, we could look at this from the base level. We love the physical shape of the feminine, right? But the inherent feminine, the inside, the part that wants to come out. One of the things that I find incredibly beautiful is when a man walks up to a woman from behind. And I don't mean boo, not like that, but I mean he walks up from behind her, right, in a way that he is expressing his love for her, and she knows that he's there. And when the man wraps his arms around her and hugs her or embraces her from behind, women just do this. They breathe in deeply. They say, and they relax into their feminine. Because when a man embraces you from behind, all of a sudden he's saying, babe, I've got your back. And you don't have to be in that protective mode anymore where you're trying to keep yourself safe, because the man is saying, babe, I can do that. And then all of a sudden you shift into your natural inherent feminine. This natural nurturer comes out, this tenderness comes out, the way you see and sensually experience the world. Women are feelers, and they are kinesthetic, and they experience visual beauty from a different standard in a different way than men experience it, and they hear things in a different way. So when they're sensually aware, when a woman is able to be in her inherent feminine, she is sensual in a way that draws the attention of a man. When a woman exudes that femininity, not necessarily even that sexuality, but when she exudes that tenderness, that natural nurturing, that softer side, that sweetness, all of a sudden men are drawn to her. Why? Because we as men, we're kind of pokey. Like, we, inside of my body, I can feel everything that's around me in my room. I feel like we as men are constantly pushing out. We're pushing on the world. We're influencing the world. We are pushing on each other, and we're constantly pushing. It's almost like we're little starfish, and the ends of our little, pointers is actually pointy. And so I feel like we're poking into the world everywhere we go. But when that natural feminine comes in place, comes into our world, all of a sudden those sharp edges, those sharp points start to soften. And when those start to soften, we start to soften inside of our own being, inside of our own body. We don't feel like we're constantly in that mode for physical defense or for war or for developing or creating or driving or forcing or fixing. We feel like all of a sudden there's a softness and presence, something that we as men don't experience very often, starts to come back. Now, there's a difference between being present. Being present is being aware of our five senses, and being in the presence. Being present can be limiting, but being in the presence is liberating. And this is really important. Femininity liberates the masculine. Femininity liberates the expression of the man's emotion and connection to his emotions. Femininity releases the man's ability to communicate more authentically and more completely. When a woman wants to have a conversation with her man, one of the best things for her to do is not have a conversation in a room with a closed door facing him. Because when men are chest to chest with somebody else, usually that means we're going to fight. However, when men operate out in the world, we're typically side by side or maybe like angled from each other, because we want to be able to look at the horizon. We don't want to look at each other, because then we lose the horizon, because we get stuck on each other. So when a woman wants to have a conversation with her man, if she says in that sweet, soft, amazing, inherent feminine, babe, will you go for a walk with me? As long as the walks are easy and nice conversations, in the quiet times when a man is thinking, he won't feel uncomfortable and you won't feel uncomfortable. Why? Because your visual cortex is taken up by birds flying and children playing at the park, and you hear the sounds of birds chirping, you feel the sun on your skin, and you feel the breeze on your skin. And as you're walking, the quiet times are less uncomfortable. But if you sit quietly in a room and want to have a conversation with your man, that makes it really difficult, because then the masculine and the feminine clash. You want to talk about feelings and he may not be there yet. And so he doesn't understand that. And as much as he loves you, he might want to get out of that room and get out of that position. But if you go for a walk with him and there's a softness about you and you hold his hand periodically, or if you want to make a point, you stop and you turn to face him and you hold his hands. When you hold a man's hands, you're saying, I believe in you. When you touch a man's chest and you're facing him, you're saying, I feel safe with you. When you touch his upper arms, you're saying, babe, you can do it. I believe in you. You have the strength. You have the power. You have the ability. And when you reach up with your inherent feminine, that soft, loving, nurturing, tender expression, and you touch his face and you look in his eyes, all of a sudden you're saying, babe, I love you. I support you. I'm here with you. You can trust me. And a man is looking for that one woman he can actually trust. And femininity is the bridge to that trust.
Mm, that was beautiful.
Thanks.
And, you know, PJ, I think this word femininity, it's used a lot. There's a lot of talk out there in our industry about feminine energy.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
kind of like the language of feminine presence a little bit more than energy. This is just me, but
Yes.
because I think it's just your presence. It's just who you are. It's not even so much about what you're doing. It's just who you're being. When you're showing up as this real, beautiful version of you, this authentic version of you, this vulnerable version of you, it makes it safer for a man to show up in that way as well. And vulnerability is also another thing that's talked about so much in our industry. And you know, it's interesting because in one of my interviews with John Gray, we had this conversation about vulnerability. And one of the things he brought up, I just loved, and that was we typically think of vulnerability, of sharing kind of our soft spots, those areas that we are a little tender in, or those things that we feel about ourselves that we might not consider to be polished or perfect. And that certainly is a part of vulnerability. But one thing that he said, and this was the part that I loved, he said, it's also about sharing your hopes, your dreams, your passions, the things that light you up, the things that
Yes.
make you happy, the things that are so important to you. And that is part of femininity. And it's also part of the first thing that we talked about in terms of helping a man get in touch with his feelings. Because when he experiences you that way, it can help sort of be a bridge to help him to feel those things for himself.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. It's the feminine presence, right? It's the expression of the natural part of you. It's the part that comes out when you're no longer afraid, when you're not concerned, when you're not angry, when you're not hurt, when you're just in that natural space of integrity. That natural feminine comes out. It's absolutely beautiful. The feminine and the masculine are not opposites of each other, they're complements of each other. And I love that John Gray is hitting that right on the head. Vulnerability is about the expression of the whole you, your hopes, your dreams, the things that you're excited about, the things you're scared about. And men need that opportunity. We don't share that very often with our male friends, although there is an evolution, which is really beautiful right now. There is an evolution that men are experiencing, that men are becoming more in touch with their softer side. And that's really becoming beautiful for relationships because the women are able to actually have that deeper connection with the man. So ladies, continue to be in that feminine and really embrace it, express it, be in that presence, because it probably feels really beautiful for you to be in that space also. And if you're feeling beautiful in that space, think about how he's going to feel in your presence.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, we could go on this one all night, but in the interest of time, we'll move
Yes.
forward. So we've already kind of touched on this one a little bit. Did I skip one?
Yes,
Uh,
number 3. Nope.
number.
Yeah, number 3. Number 1, number 2.
Maybe my numbering's off. I got 2 4s. This
Okay,
is number
good.
3. Ignore the 4. This is number 3. Your ability to nurture. So this is one that a lot of men have mentioned to me. And when you think about nurturing, you might think about nurturing in terms of children. You know, younger women have children and they nurture and they raise babies. And for many of the women in our audience, you've had the experience of perhaps having children, perhaps raising children, perhaps taking care of children, or on the other side of the spectrum, taking care of aging parents. That's the situation that I've been in myself over the past couple of years, is taking care of aging parents and having my mom pass away in August, and now helping take care of my dad. But we have this innate gift as women for caring not only for people, for animals, for the planet, for the environment, for whatever you're passionate about, plants. We have this ability to nurture and to help things grow and to help things blossom. And one of the men that I interviewed, when he was talking about this nurturing quality, he said, he said, I'm just amazed, you know, she remembers people's birthdays and she remembers all the thoughtful little things to do that make people feel good and make people feel nurtured and loved and cared for. And he said, I'm just kind of trying to focus on getting through the workday. Now, I'm not saying that men aren't thoughtful or they don't have that capacity as well, but I'm saying this nurturing gift kind of extends out from you. And it's something that a lot of men really love, appreciate, and adore about women. It goes into, like PJ was talking a little bit about, the environment, your house. Typically, it's not the man that's decorating or making things look nice in the house. It's typically a woman that's kind of nurturing in that way, making their living space comfortable and presentable and even beautiful and inspiring, because having that kind of environment around you is something that makes a man feel cared for and nurtured, and something he might not do for himself. So this ability to nurture really encompasses all kinds of things. And this might just be the natural way that you're going through the world, the way you're just living your life. I've had clients who have, shared with me when they've gone to stay with friends after a significant surgery, or, they're taking care of their friends' children after having surgery, or whatever the case may be. I mean, this is just the way that a lot of women navigate the world without even really thinking about it. And this is a really beautiful quality. And I will say, this is another reason why it's really important for a woman to also be attentive and care for her own needs, and to nurture her own needs and take care of herself in terms of managing her energy and everything, because we're really good givers as women. We're not always as skilled at receiving or taking care of ourselves, and we can eventually become depleted if we're not aware of that. But it is one of our most beautiful and lovely gifts, our ability to nurture and love and care for those things within our realm, those people in our circles, those people that we care about, and to really be a force, a positive force for good in the world. PJ, I'll let you add to that.
I absolutely love that. I wish all of the women could feel the softness that's in my heart right now. When we talk about the feminine nurturing, if we look at all living things, all living sentient beings have to need power to survive. And power can be muscle, it can be sunlight, it can be food, it can be intelligence. In this case, nurturing is the food for the soul. And so it creates a bond and a connection between two people. And men have interesting, fun connections also. And they go to a certain depth also. But women really have that ability to drop right into the soul level, right into the connection of the real, what's the word I want? The real core of a human being, of another human being. They can speak to their heart. They can speak to that soul. They can speak to that core, to that deeper self. And nurturing pours into that person, making them feel like they matter. It's food for the soul. And when we are nurtured, we feel like there's a connection. One of my favorite my definition actually of love is the willing exchange of oneself for oneness, the willing exchange of oneself for oneness. And when a woman nurtures, that natural ability just to nurture, the sense of oneself about her starts to disappear. And there's only this sense of oneness that both parties experience. There's this love, this connection, this appreciation, this respect, this bond that occurs between both of them. And just like Michelle said, women are wonderful, wonderful nurturers and givers, but not always so good about nurturing and giving to themselves. So allow this to be an awareness for you that when you nurture yourself, then you have that, you feel like you become filled up again, and you can move through the world with that natural inherent femininity again. Because if you get depleted, the femininity shuts down because the brain goes into survival mode. So take the time to nurture yourself so that you can nurture others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so important, and such a beautiful feminine gift that we have. And sometimes we just take it for granted and don't even recognize how meaningful it is and how important it is. and that the right man will really see and appreciate this in his lady.
Yes. And
Okay,
I love that you say his lady, because I say the same thing.
his
I
lady.
don't use the word woman as much, and I use the word lady quite often because for me, I want him to be a gentleman and for her to be his lady. I just think there's so much beauty and so much romance and so much connection and nurturing that goes back and forth when we look at at our partner as our gentleman and as our lady. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, that term lady is the woman that he's chosen and she's chosen to be with him. He's that special lady that he's chosen from all of the women out there. So
Mhm.
it connotes a deeper kind of connection. And
It
so I did use that word intentionally, and you picked right up on it.
does.
PJ, you're so smart.
Thanks. Well,
You're
it
so
also, thanks. And it leads us right perfectly to the next one, to number 4,
I
right?
know. Now this is the real number 4.
This is the real number 4. And this is the real important one also, because a moment ago we were talking about being a lady. So what does that mean? A lady has high standards. A lady says that she knows what she wants and she knows what she deserves and she knows what she wants to hold out for. So a very basic level example of this is knowing how she wants to be treated and holding her standards high, that it's okay for this particular person to be in your life because they treat you as a lady, they treat you as if they are a gentleman, and they show up in that high standard. Or we meet people sometimes where you realize that they're not really there at that high standard that you are. And so they sort of bring down the energy, and that's not what we want. I can guarantee you that men want to be good men. Men want to be good men. We are looking for you to hold that standard high, to wait for that physical intimacy. Because when you wait for that physical intimacy, you hold that standard high. And even though the man might approach you and might be flirty and might be a little bit touchy and hoping to take it to that next physical level, if you're not ready yet and your standards haven't been met, you're still holding that standard high, you can always say something like, well, thank you, I'm flattered, but I'm a lady and I like to wait before I engage in anything physical. It's really important for me to develop the relationship first. And a gentleman will say, I absolutely understand, please forgive me. And the relationship will only grow more and more deep from that point forward. So as a man, I tell you, we definitely want to raise our standards also. We want to be good men, and we want to be good men because if we're good men, we get to keep you. And so when you raise your standards, immediately that will show you, is he a good man that wants to meet those standards with you and wants to rise up and become a better man so that you make him a better man? We hear this all the time. Men say this all the time. She makes me a better man. And that, I love that, because what he's saying is, I want to be a better man, but I didn't have the need or the reason until I met her. And then she brought out the higher level in me. So when a woman knows what she's worth, this is really beautiful. When a woman knows what she's worth, when a woman knows the value that she brings to her community, to her family, to her friends, to her partner, her romantic partner, her lifelong partner, her lover, her husband, this woman immediately raises her standards and says that this is what I want. It's not arrogant. It's not egotistical. It's just recognizing that you will perform your best and be at your highest level of feminine and be able to express that natural nurturing at the highest possible level when your standards are raised and really high, and you keep your standards high for yourself, and he meets those standards. Because when he meets those standards, when he raises himself up and he gets better himself, when he gets better to make sure that he is performing, not performing in an artificial way, but showing up in a way that nurtures and provides for you in the way that you need and want, all of a sudden your level of value goes up again. So your standards are high. He raises up and becomes the better man because of you. And when he becomes a better man and stays in that place because your standards stay high, you then can up-level the value that you provide for the world because you're not worried about trying to take care of yourself. you are actually allowed to just be that natural nurturer, be in that natural feminine, be that natural lover, that natural provider, that natural gentle nature, be that creative force, be that love that the world is looking for, be that light in the world. Why? Because he has raised his standards, and you know that you can trust him, and that you feel safe in his presence, and that he will hold the space for you.
Mm. Yeah, beautifully said. And I think this is why standards is a part of being a woman of high value. And I think this is why I focus so much in my work on emphasizing to women and emphasizing to my clients about knowing their own intrinsic value as a woman, which means that you're really centered in knowing who you are, what you want, what feels right to you, what feels good to you, and you are guided by that in your decisions that you make, in your interactions with men. And part of that is having standards in terms of how you will want to be treated and how you want a man to show up for you. And in some cases, it requires, shall I say, just a little bit of guidance.
Sure.
In terms of letting a man know that, because most good men want to please women. This is something that's come through very clear in my conversations with men.
Yes.
They don't always intuitively know exactly how to do this.
Yes.
And without us telling them. So if we can learn how to speak to them and to ask in ways that a man can really hear us and has that opportunity to respond, many good men are more than willing to respond in a way if they know what a woman wants and needs from them. One of the challenges that happens out there, and this is something many of you have probably heard me talk about before, is that there are so many women out there who are a little murky when it comes to knowing their own value, or in terms of knowing their standards, or even really knowing what they want or need in a relationship.
And whether or not they feel like they deserve it.
And good point. And whether or not they feel like they deserve it. And so what sometimes happens is when these women are not really clear and really centered in knowing their own value, of which standards is a part, then they often don't make their decisions from that place. So that means they may be compromising their values or compromising their standards, whether it be sleeping with a man too soon, or just putting all of their time, attention, focus, energy into him when he's still thinking of her as an option. And it tends to take a toll on a woman's self-esteem. But the other thing that happens, and this is really important, is it can create this phenomenon where a man becomes what I call a lazy dater. In other words, he becomes so used to women kind of doing all the work and carrying things forward that he no longer feels like he has to put a lot of effort or intention or attention into a woman to spend time with her. And so I'm certainly not blaming laziness or lack of effort of men on women, but I'm saying we can contribute to that phenomenon if we're not women that are centered in knowing our own value, of which our standards are a part. And for me, standards, a big part of it is knowing your own value to the point that you know how you want and need to be treated, and that you more or less are no longer willing to settle for being treated for less than what you deserve or what you want.
Yes. Can I jump in again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so listen, ladies, I get excited. So I don't know if you can see me in the corner. I get excited. I got to move around, right? Because this is super duper juicy, delicious. All right. So first thing, I've got a couple of things I want to add here. So the first thing I would say is there's a book by Ray Dalio right now called Principles. Okay. And I would suggest that you read this book. And as you read this book, you read the book from the perspective of what your principles are for your romantic relationship. That is not what the book was written for, but that is it absolutely applies intrinsically with no problems whatsoever. It's a great, it just merges beautifully. So read that book to help you identify what your principles are, what your standards are, okay? What you want to live by, how you want to live. So then I want to jump in here. A lot of times women don't really know that I don't know if I feel like I can raise my standards that much. Is that too high? maybe I don't deserve that. Maybe like if I raise my standards too high, there aren't really that many good men out there. So maybe I should like kind of come back down and be more reasonable. Now you're compromising. What is the real truth of what you want? When you look at this beautiful, amazing life, when you look at this beautiful, amazing relationship that maybe you've been dreaming about your whole life and that you really want, how do you want it to look? What do you want him to be like? How do you want him to speak to you? How do you want him to touch you? How do you want him to hold you? When you raise those standards and you say, even though you're scared, even though you're like, oh, I don't know, like, is he going to accept me? If he doesn't accept you, that is fantastic. You know why? Because he's the wrong guy. He's not a gentleman. He's just some dude that was trying to like, hook up with good enough. That is not good enough for you. You get to raise those standards to the point where you say, you know what? This is what I really want. The truth is, if I was looking at a relationship and I was going to build a relationship, this is the relationship that I want. Raise those standards, ladies, because when you raise those standards, you start to say, okay, I am worth this, because I know that if this is the kind of man that shows up in my life, if this is the kind of relationship that I have, I know this is how I'm going to be with my family. This is how I'm going to be with my neighbors. This is how I'm going to be with the community groups that I'm part of. This is how I'm going to be with my friends. This is how I'm going to be with my partner. This is how I'm going to be with my children. I know that when I raise my standards, I become a better woman and a higher value item for this man. And when my man comes into my life and he treats me and connects with me and communicates with me and is receptive to my wants and needs and my requests, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he's your servant, but that does mean that he's your partner. And when he rises to that standard and you are healthy and happy, you're not in doubt. You're not feeling like you're taking something from him. You're not feeling like your standards are too high and you're expecting too much. What you realize is we've got a beautiful, amazing, dynamic, powerful relationship. One of my favorite quotes, and I use this with my male clients, and I also use this with my female clients when I'm saying, hey, let's make sure that you know what your standards are. I love this. This quote says, a boy makes his girl jealous. A boy makes his girl jealous. A man, I would argue a gentleman, makes his ladies' girlfriends jealous. A man, a gentleman, makes his ladies' girlfriends jealous because they go, oh, I wish that I had a man just like you. That's amazing. Where did you find him? Does he have a brother? The way you found him is you raised your standards. And if he can't meet those standards, you simply get to say, thank you so much for showing up and telling me who you are and what you're able to do. I'm not sure that we're a good fit. It's been wonderful. I love this and this and this about you. However, these 2 or 3 things don't work for me, but I do like this and this and this about you. Notice that's a really beautiful way to say goodbye, to part ways. You tell them the 2 or 3 or 4 things that you really love about them, that you admire and respect. You tell them the 1 or 2 or 3 things that just doesn't work. And then you tell them again, but I really do respect and like these things about you. And you're specific again. When you raise your standards and you are specific, the man gets something out of his time with you, and you by default make him a better man for the next lady. So this is a way for ladies to support each other. And a woman with high standards has a way of saying goodbye. Thank you very much for the time that we've spent together, in a very beautiful and classy way.
Mm-hmm. That was so beautifully said. And one of the cool things about raising your standards is that you stand out from
Yes.
other women in a really positive way. Like you catch a man's attention where a man goes, oh, wow,
Yes.
this is a woman that I have to show up for
Yes.
in a certain way if I want to earn her respect, her trust, and be able to spend time with her and possibly win her affections. You stand out in a really beautiful way. And so I love this. Again, we could talk about this one all
I
night.
know.
This one is just so near and dear to my heart, as you know, PJ, and obviously to yours too. And I love that quote that you shared. So thank you so much for that. That
Thank
was
you. Yes, thank you.
beautiful. So the next one, you give his life deeper meaning. So this one is kind of interesting. And again, like I said, I'm sharing a lot from my conversations that I've had with men on my man panels, and through the opportunity of having a chance to have men really share some really wonderful and deep things with me. And I can remember years ago, I can remember dating this man, and things were going quite well. Obviously, I didn't marry him because he's not my husband now, but things were going quite well, and we were dating. And I can remember one day we were sitting across the table from each other at a restaurant, and he was saying something to me. We were just talking, and then all of a sudden he turned to me and he said, Michelle, he said, going to work every day, doing what we do as men, being kind of out there competing in the world, and, kind of trying to prove ourselves over and over again. He says, it can really be sometimes really tiring and really taxing. He's just sharing this with me. And then he says, what would make it all worth it? What makes it all worth it for a man is when he has the right lady in his life. It makes everything that we do as men to show up in the world and to matter, it makes it all worth it when we have the right lady in our lives.
Yes.
So I thought that was really beautiful. And then in one of my interviews with Evan Mark Katz, I remember we were talking about the differences between men and women. We were talking about how so often as women, we have these deep friendships and connections with our friends. And if things go wrong, or if we have something happening in our life that we really want to share, many of us have friends or sisters or other females in our lives that we can really share deeply with. The kind of friend that you can call up when you're having a really bad day and cry, or you can call up and share something really exciting, and they share in your joy, and these really deep, meaningful connections. And we even have these events like this where women from all over the world are gathered together. We're gathered virtually, but as women, we're together here, and we're here to help each other and to support each other and cheer each other on, even though it's sort of virtual. But he was saying, he said, Michelle, he said, I have some pretty good friends, like from college and from, my past, but he said, we don't have that kind of connection with each other. We might talk once in a while and say, what's up, dude? And how's this or that going? But he said, we're not talking about the really deep challenges of life, or we're not talking about the really deep things that are going on in our lives typically. And he said to me, and he looked into the camera at this point in the interview, and he almost had tears in his eyes, and it really touched my heart. And he said, if we don't have you, meaning you as the woman in his life,
yes,
what do we have?
Yes.
That if we don't have you, what do we have? It's like, what is it all for? Like, what are we doing all of this striving for, all of this work for, all of this competing for, all of this trying to become better, stronger, faster, all those things that men want to be, right?
Yes.
He's talking about the meaning that you give to his life. And then he shared a little bit about his, his own dating life. And he had his own long and winding journey to love, just like I did before meeting his wife. And the people that he dated and some of the heartbreaks and disappointments that he had, and then finally meeting his wife and now being married to her, and they have a family together, and she's not exactly who he thought he was looking for, but he's found the person for him that is just right for him. And it has given his life this richness and this depth and this meaning that he said he could have never imagined. And that just really touched me, because I do really believe that when the right woman and the right man are partnered together, it can give both people richer, deeper meaning in their lives. And I know it's kind of a cliche phrase, but it can kind of be like the wind beneath his wings, and he can be kind of like the wind beneath your wings. I mean, I feel like as a result of my marriage and being with my husband, it's allowed me the freedom and the ability to do things that I probably would have never done on my own. And I like to believe that that's the same for my husband. I'm not just going to speak for him right at the moment, but I think he would say that. So I just am saying, just by who you're being, this isn't even by anything you're doing. This is just by your presence, which is why I love this idea of feminine presence.
Mm-hmm.
Just by your feminine presence in your life, in his life, and who you are, you can give his life richer, deeper meaning.
Yes.
I'll let you take it from there, PJ.
So this is really, really beautiful. Again, I feel as though I've shifted into my heart and into this presence. Presence, remember I said earlier, is liberating. And men need to feel like we have some value. And when a good woman is in our life and she allows us, listen to that word, she allows us into her space, she allows us into her life, she allows us to be part of her life, then we feel like we matter. Men need to feel like they matter. This is actually a perfect segue to the next one that we'll talk about in just a moment. Men need to feel like we matter. We need to feel like we can provide. We need to feel like we can protect. We need to feel like you need us, that we matter to you, because otherwise we know, the truth is we know that you don't really need us. We know that you can do virtually everything a man can do, and oftentimes better. I mean, let's be honest, oftentimes better. However, we want to be wanted. We want to be needed. We want to be part of your life. We want to have meaning also, because we are also human. And all humans need to feel like they are contributing. All humans need to feel like they have some value. In the 6 basic human needs that Tony Robbins talks about a lot, one of the things he talks about, one of the 6 is contribution. And so many people need to feel like they're contributing outside of their lives, like donating their time, donating money, creating charitable organizations. But in the home, in the relationship, we need to know that we're contributing in a way that you respect, that you love, that you appreciate, that you find value in. Because what this really means to us is that if we have meaning, then we have impact in the world. And if we have meaning and we have impact in the world, specifically, if we have meaning, value, and impact in your life, in your world, then we know that you're likely to stay with us. And that's really important, because when we as men look at the world, we look at the world in terms of competition. We realize that you could be stolen away from us by a better man any moment, any day, which begs the question, of course, oh, why then are you better men? Like, why don't you show up better? I get that. I get that. I get that. Raise your standards so that we can become better men. And if we feel like we have some meaning, specifically in your life, but meaning in our own life too, like I have value. The way you pour into me as my partner, you make me feel like I have meaning in the world, not just in our relationship, but it means that I have contribution, I have impact, that I matter for a reason. And within the relationship, for some reason, I matter. And within the relationship, if in the relationship you allow me to feel like I have meaning for you in the relationship, that I have value and powerful and positive influence for you, then I know that the competition out there is not likely to steal you away, because I'm showing up the way that I need to show up for you to want to stay with me. I can't deny it comes back to mating in some cases. We are biologically designed for mating, and we don't want to lose you to another male. So we want to be the best possible man we can. When you raise your standards and we get to feel like we're better men, you allow us to feel like we have meaning in this world. And when we feel like we have meaning, we will show up bigger and better for you. Why? Because I now have something I can share. Value.
Thank you, PJ.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And this one, you're going to take the lead on this one?
I am.
So important too.
Yes, it is. And this is actually a perfect segue, because I love how these have been put together, because it's literally like one meaning leads to the next slide, which leads to the next slide. It's so perfect. So loyalty and support, there's 2 different things going on here. Men need to know you're loyal, because if we go all the way back to caveman days or tribal times, when the women typically were working together in the community and talking a lot and doing the gathering and taking care of the children, men were out on raids or men were out hunting, and we needed to know that the men that were with us were loyal, that we could trust them, because men, that masculine has a connection with life and death. Women have a connection with life and death too, but it's different. Men tend to take life and women tend to give life. Now, that is a whole nother philosophical conversation that we could have at another point in time. But men are physically stronger, and we tend to think in terms of, I want to say sort of pack animals, but more like a wolf pack. We work together, we function together with other men, and we need to know that we can count on the other men. If we can count on the other men, then we feel safe. If we feel safe, that's because they're loyal. We know that they've got our back. This translates into our relationship. If we need to be vulnerable, we're only going to be vulnerable with those that we feel are loyal to us, those that we know that will protect us. So remember when I talked about the man walking up behind his lady and embracing her from behind, and the lady draws in that deep breath. She just rests and relaxes back into her feminine. It's because the man is saying, babe, I've got your back. There's a sense of loyalty and trust there. And if we look at the way a woman can show up for a man, she can embrace him from the front. She can pour into him. She can listen to him, listen without judgment. Listen, not judge, not interrupt, not tell him what to do, but sincerely just listen and be present with him. Even when he's not speaking, are you listening to his body language? Are you listening to his energy? Are you helping him to learn to be in connection with his own emotions? Are you providing the space for him to think and start to feel and identify and figure out what that emotion is? Are you patient enough for him to find it so that he can communicate? When you embrace him from the front, physically, but also metaphorically, you're embracing his heart. And if you are loyal, you don't interrupt him, you don't judge him, you don't tell him what to do. You don't get on the bandwagon and start to tease him when all of his friends, because guy friends tease guy friends. We live in a hierarchy. We want to know who's the alpha male and who's below us. So if that alpha male leaves the room, I know that I'm the next alpha male in charge. And we know that. And when our friends tease us, and that happens with men, we tease each other, we joke about, and we talk about who's stronger and who's smarter and all kinds of different things. And if the woman jumps on board and teases us also, that can sometimes, if the things that our male friends are saying, for whatever reason, consciously or unconsciously, make us feel less than, if the woman starts teasing us too, all of a sudden we feel even less than. But if she's loyal and she comes over and she's like, no, he's amazing. He's wonderful. He is always showing up for me in this way and this way. I love this guy. He's my man. All of a sudden we go, there's one person in this world I trust, my lady. And if I can trust my lady, she'll get the best out of me always. It's your role as a loyal woman, as a loyal lady, as a loyal partner, to take on that connection to the feminine that his mother wasn't able to do. We will tell you when you're loyal and we know that we can trust you. We will tell you, and we will feel like we'll tell you more than we'll tell our own moms. And we will absolutely feel like we are safer with you than any other person on the planet. We're looking for that woman that we know has our back. We're looking for our partner. We're looking for somebody that we know we can trust. And then that gives us the opportunity for support. We want to support you. We want to be the protector and provider. Because just like I was saying a moment ago, with the man having meaning, when we know that we are the protector and the provider, when you allow us to protect you, when you allow us to provide for you, it doesn't mean you can't earn more money than us. It doesn't mean that you can't go out and say, babe, I'm good. I can do this on my own. You can totally do that. But there are times when we want to protect you. And even if you don't feel like you need it, if you can humor us and see the sweet gesture, the desire that we have to show up, to make sure that we are protecting you as our lady, protecting you as another human being, protecting you and our relationship from anybody else who might want to try to come and steal you away. Remember, we are born for hunting. We are born for raiding. We know what other men are like. And so as long as you allow us to protect and provide for you, we feel like you're not going to leave us. We feel like we're providing something juicy and delicious and amazing for you. We feel like we're supporting you. So also this support goes the other way. When you support us by sometimes, and I know the truth is sometimes you humor us and allow us to feel like we're protecting you and allow us to feel like we're providing for you. But sometimes we really do protect and sometimes we really do provide. And if you allow us that loyalty and you support us by creating the space for us to show up in this way, we will want to protect and provide for you even more. And there's a quick story. I was dating a lady for a while, beautiful, kind, loving, but also fiercely courageous, fiercely independent. And one night, and at that time, I probably had 23, 24 years of martial arts training. And again, I'm a little guy in a wheelchair. I can't lift my arms, and I'm a man. And I have all kinds of training that I want to make sure that the women in my life feel safe. And so one night she and I were out and we were getting in the car and she walked up to the car and about probably 45 feet away, I saw a guy who looked like he was probably homeless and he was probably strung out on drugs. And I said to her, I said, babe, get in the car. And she's like, no, I'm not getting in the car. I was like, babe, please get in the car right now because I'm not sure what he's going to do. She's like, I'm not getting in the car and leaving you. Now I appreciate that she wants to protect me and that we're partners in this, but this was me needing to step up and be the man. Like if I was able-bodied, she might have treated me or seen me differently. She might not have. She's fiercely independent and fiercely like courageous. And so she might have stood her ground, but in that moment she could have said, are you sure? Are you safe? And I would have been like, yeah, babe, I'm totally safe. Just jump in the car and make it look like you're, looking for something or whatever. But make sure that your keys are in the car in case you need to go or in case you need to move. Right. And that would have poured into me that she felt like I was her man, that she felt like she was protected and safe with me. And it doesn't mean that anything was going to happen. And thankfully nothing happened, but she missed an opportunity to support something that was really, really critical for me. Knowing that I'm masculine, knowing that I can provide, knowing that I can protect, knowing that I can serve you, because it's a man's job. It's the masculine's job to hold the space, to allow the feminine to blossom and to continue to bring life into the world and to continue to bring love and light into the world. And if you support your man enough to realize, even if that means you sometimes have to humor him and say, he's so cute when he's in his protective mode, right? Even if that's what you have to do, it makes us feel like we matter. It goes back to making us and allowing us to feel like we have meaning in our relationship. If we can protect and provide for you, we don't believe that any other man will steal you away from us. Remember, we're hierarchical and we recognize alpha males as possible competition for us. That's why when you raise your standards, we by default become more alpha. Certainly we become better men. And when we become better men, we're more likely to step up as an alpha and keep you and show up in a way that's valuable and beautiful and beneficial for you and for our relationship.
Thank you, PJ. I just want to add a tiny little bit to this, and that is that I think it's really hard to overemphasize how important this is in a loving, committed partnership relationship. Having experienced this with my husband, when you are in that kind of partnership or marriage, and many of you know this, excuse me, because many of you have been in those kind of relationships, you become very vulnerable, and also a man becomes very vulnerable, and he shares parts of himself that he likely shares with no one else.
No one else.
No one else. And so, unfortunately, sometimes there's a situation where there might be some man bashing, or where women get together and they kind of talk about some of the weaker points or the more vulnerable points of their man, and or weaker parts of their relationship or sex life or whatever the case may be. And I want to say that a relationship when you're with someone in a loving, committed relationship, your loyalty to that person, just like their loyalty to them, is so important and so essential, and I would even say sacred, that
Mm.
it's something you need to be really aware of and really careful about, because men do have feelings. They have deep feelings. And I kind of think of it this way to some extent. As women, we have the softer, maybe more vulnerable outward exterior. But inside, we also have very deep emotions. But inside, a lot of women, we're very strong, we're very resilient. And I'm not saying we can't be deeply hurt too. But a man, I feel like it's kind of the opposite. They have this rough, tough exterior, a lot of them. And they kind of have this, some of them have this macho way of going through life where they seem sort of invulnerable.
Yes.
But inside, they are very tender and can be very, very deeply hurt and very, very deeply wounded. And if they have given you their trust and have shown and shared the most vulnerable parts of themselves with you, and you betray that trust, it can feel like the ultimate betrayal to a man. And so your loyalty and your support and your belief in him and your encouragement and your loyalty in terms of keeping those tender parts of him, or those weaker parts of him, or those what he might see or you might see as frailties or flaws in him, like protected, like when you're out, you're talking about his good points and you're building him up in front of other people, or you're paying him a compliment in front of other people, or you're pointing out something good that he did in front of other people. That is going to mean the world to him, because men don't get a lot of compliments from other men because they're competing with each other.
That's right.
They're not always acknowledging or recognizing or even seeing the good things that other men are doing in a way that they're going to acknowledge them for the most part. And so this is a very vulnerable and tender part of a man when he shares this side of himself with a woman. So it's almost impossible to overemphasize how important this is. Just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. And I had a thought that came up and I can't remember right now. So maybe if it comes up again towards the end of our call, I'll bring it up again, because it was really, really valuable, important point. So as soon as I remember, I will share it. And it does tie into loyalty.
All right, jump right in if you think about it.
Absolutely.
And this one ties into what we were just talking about. A woman, and it really ties into our whole conversation.
Yes.
You have the ability to really inspire him.
Yes.
You know, we often think about great men doing great things, and it's been said, you know, behind every great man is a great woman.
Yes.
There may be some truth to that to some extent, or at least in many cases. And in fact, I've often thought about this. Back when I was single, I can remember, you know, seeing like husbands of my sisters or some husbands of my friends who I really admired and respected and thought were just amazing men. And I'm comparing them with some of the single men I'm dating, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I don't know, can this guy ever be something like that? But I think in part, some of the reasons that some of these men were doing the great things in their lives or showing up in the way that they were in part because of the women they were partnered with. And I really do believe the right combination of people, it's what's the saying, the sum of the whole is greater than its parts. I really believe that can happen. And I was thinking a little bit about this, you know, this movie, Jerry Maguire. And of course, the main line that most people remember from that movie is the "You complete me" line. And PJ, you and I had a conversation about that. We won't necessarily go into that today. But I was thinking about another piece in the movie. And this is the part in the movie where the character that's played by Tom Cruise is running this initial offer by the character that's played by Cuba Gooding Jr. And it's not a very good offer, as you'll recall, this initial offer, right?
Yes.
And I was thinking about this interaction between him and Tom Cruise, the characters played by those people, and then the wife. And so basically Tom Cruise calls and gives him the offer, and I printed this out so I could just share a little bit of the dialogue with you. And so So the character by Cuba Gooding Jr. is saying, tell me what to do, Jerry. You tell me to eat lima beans, I'll eat lima beans. If you say take the SHITT deal, that's all we can get. And then the wife says, all we can get. And then the Cuba Gooding Jr. character says, can I speak with my agent here? So he's now going to talk to his wife. And this is the part that I wanted to point out. This is what she says to him. She reminds him of his own value. She inspires him and invites him to remember who he is. And she says, you know what you're going to do, Rodney? You're going to reject this SHITT contract. You're going to play out your existing contract and go be a free agent next year, and the hell with Arizona. Now, this is the part. She says, this is us, and we determine our worth. You're a fine, proud, surviving, splendid Black man. And when you show up in that way, where you remind your man of who he is during those times when he's questioning or he's doubting or he's wondering or he's having a hard time or he's struggling with something, you inspire him to bigger, better, greater things. You remind him to show up as that kind of man that you can be really proud of and that you can respect. Because for most women, a big part of not only falling in love, but staying in love is really being able to respect a man. But in part, he can be that man that you respect because you can inspire him by reminding him by who you're being and who you're showing up as to who he is and his own value as well. So this is one of the beautiful things about partnership when you have the right combination of people. If you're showing up being centered in your own value and you're showing up with that feminine presence in his life, you can also inspire him to so many things and remind him to be the best version of himself. And it's so beautiful and it's so amazing. And I feel like it's one of the gifts that we get from partnership when we're with the right person. I know you're going to want to add to this, and I got really passionate about this because I feel really strongly about it. I just think it's a really beautiful, amazing thing that happens with the right combination of people.
The masculine has a tendency to be able to get along with good enough. And so we can live in the dirt. We can live in tents. We can, forage off of the land and, hunt and just barely scrape by. But when a woman sees our inherent value, when a woman inspires us to be better, all of a sudden we start getting more out of life than we ever thought we could have before, than we'd ever even imagined or dreamed. Our life gets better, it gets happier, it gets more fun, it gets more fulfilling, and there's more experiences and more excitement and more variety. That really, people say variety is the spice of life, but variety is one of those 6 degrees or those 6 basic human needs that I mentioned earlier. And so when there is that certainty that our woman is behind us, supporting us and inspiring us, it drives us to be better men. It drives us to be the Superman that we see here on the screen. And when this is 100% authentic, ladies, when Michelle was reading what Cuba Gooding Jr.'s wife was saying, when she said, no, the heck with that, you're not going to go with that crappy contract, you're going to be a free agent. After that point, when she started singing his praises and telling him his worth, I literally was getting choked up. I literally was getting choked up now. I literally had tears in my eyes. She wasn't speaking it to me, but my masculine male brain was hearing that. And it was touching me deeply, and it was making me feel like I had value. She wasn't even talking to me. She was talking to you. It wasn't even her words. It was the words from a movie that I've seen. And yet, just hearing those words powerfully, I'm still choked up in my throat, right? Powerfully impacted me. And I was just listening. I was just eavesdropping on what Michelle was saying to you about, literally just rereading that. And it powerfully impacted me. When you stand for him, when you inspire him, when you see him, when you let him know that he matters enough to take that next step, that he can have impact and value in this world, that he can step up and make a difference in this world, it means we matter. It goes right back to the number 5, I think, where you need to make him have meaning or help him to have meaning. When he knows he matters, he is inspired to do better. So if, for example, if you want him to become a better lover, for example, or you want, like, I'll talk about communication too in just a minute. So if you want him to be a better lover, if you say, babe, I love it when you touch me in this way, or when you do this to me because it makes me feel this way. When you link that to his sexuality, to his ability to please you, if we feel like we can please you sexually, then all of a sudden we don't believe that any man is going to steal you from us, because we have been able to give you more pleasure than anybody else. And we want that. So if you feel confident enough to say, babe, I love it when you do this, it makes me feel this way, right? Or I'll do that again because all of a sudden it just makes me feel, right? Or it causes me to. All of a sudden he goes, notice I'm telling him why that I want it done, right? Because it makes me feel, right? Because is the single word in the English dictionary that, when used appropriately, causes people to say yes to you more than 50% of the time. Some research demonstrates 63+% of the time people will say yes to you. So if you want somebody to say yes to you, if you want him to follow your requests, and if you say, hey, can you do this? Because when you say because and you follow it with a reason and link it to how you physically feel, or how you're maybe turned on or aroused by him, when you do that, if you can link it to his sexuality, to his prowess, to his influence on how you physically and emotionally feel, not like, babe, can you do, can you change the light bulb because it makes me feel like, you're taking care of me. Like, okay, sure, that's going to help because it makes me feel like you're taking care of me. He hears it makes me feel protected and provided for. He loves that. But also in communication, if you're able to say, if you like the way he's dressed for a particular, occasion, you could say, oh, I love it when you wear that blue shirt. It just really makes my heart go pitter patter and makes me want to spend time with you. I love it when you wear that blue shirt. It makes me want to take it off of you. He goes, oh my God, she loves my blue shirt and she wants to take it off of me. You've linked it
He's
to
going to be
sex.
wearing that every day.
Yes, you're going to have to tell him that you like the red shirt instead, because that guy's going to be stinky pretty soon because he's going to wear it all the time, because you've linked to something that matters to him. And if he feels like he can provide for you, if he feels like he can touch you emotionally and sexually and bring you to a space where you feel really, really good, he believes he gets to keep you. And when you pour into him and tell him what his value is, and you help him to see his value, and you inspire him to take that next step, and you encourage him even when he's scared, and you support him in whatever way that you can, when he succeeds, he is going to want to pour that right back into you. The same as when a good man pours love and nurturing and accolades into you. When a man does a little bit for a woman will turn around and pour tons back into the man. And so this is a beautiful feedback loop. When he shows up and does something good and you inspire him, he wants to turn around and be a better man for you. When he's a better man for you, you naturally want to pour into him. When you pour into him, he wants to give back to you. It's the law of reciprocity. The more you show up for him, the better he's going to be. This reminds me of what I forgot, and it's perfect. So in relationships, so many times people are afraid to show up 100% because, well, if I completely dedicate myself, then I'm a little bit afraid that he won't. And if he doesn't, then I could get hurt. So our unconscious mind is driving you to not give and show up 100%. And when you don't give and show up 100%, what happens is, you can probably hear the life flight flying over. I live fairly close, a couple blocks away from a hospital. When you show up 100%, he will likely show up 100%. But when one partner does not show up 100%, meaning you're 100% committed, you are in, even if that means your heart's going to get broken, you are 100% in. When you are 100% in, it allows the other person, the other party, to go 100% in. But if you only go in about, like, say, I don't know, 85, 90%, because part of your unconscious mind, that fight or flight process, like, gosh, I don't want to get my heart broken. So, and I don't really know where he is. So, and I'm not asking you, like, from the first date, go 100%. But as he earns that 100%, pour more into him and dedicate that 100% to the relationship, he will do the same. Because if you pull back and hold back and you're only at, like, say, 85 or 90%, he'll feel that, just like if he held back at 85 or 90%, you would feel that. And so you wouldn't commit 100%. And then he's going to feel that, then he won't commit 100%. And then you won't, then he won't. And the relationship devolves. It literally will degrade and fall apart. And you'll wind up saying things like, well, I don't really trust that you will actually show up. I don't really believe that you're telling me the real truth. I don't really believe. Oh my goodness, don't do that. Don't do that. Go the other way. Inspire him, make him feel good, and he'll want to pour more into you. So you start to show up at 100% for each other and for the relationship. I'm in, babe. I'm in, 100% committed. Even if that means I get a broken heart, he will feel safer with you and inspired by that love, and he will do everything he can to protect and provide you and bring as much pleasure to you as he possibly can, because he will feel like you are there 100%. You're the one person that gets him, the one person he feels safe with, the one person he can share everything with, and he'll want to do anything and everything he can for you and with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, PJ.
Mm-hmm.
Our intention with this tonight has been to just remind you of some of the powerful feminine gifts that you have inherently just by being who you are. And a lot of this is really not even about what you're doing, it's just how you're showing up, that feminine presence. And we really wanted to remind you about this at the beginning of the year. And I know some of these things you can't fully practice, you can't really fully implement until you've met someone that you are compatible with and you're exploring partnership with. But we wanted to remind you of these things because even in dating, there's so much of this that can be implemented, and having an awareness and understanding of some of these things that men really value in women above and beyond just the obvious things that PJ has shared as a man and things that men have shared with me as I've talked with men. We just really hope that this reminds you to celebrate who you are and helps you to be centered in knowing your own value and to be showing up in your decisions and how you're showing up in the world, navigating the world from that place of being that woman of high value and making your life decisions, not just in your love life, but in other aspects of your life, from that place where you're coming from that place of faith and confidence and not from a place of fear, scarcity, or lack, because it makes all the difference in the world in what's possible for you. So we just, the whole intention of this event is to kind of, all of the interviews and right from the very beginning when we had the opening ceremony, is to give you some guidance, to be like a GPS system, to help you as you're out there navigating the world of dating and exploring relationships and exploring partnership, to give you some real tangible tools, ideas, concepts, and inspiration to help moving you forward. And I'm just here to say, your time is now. There's no time like the present. The most precious of any commodity is time. And our life's time and our life energy and how we spend it is one of the most important decisions that we make, because we never get back our time. And I've shared with some of you that I guess maybe as a result of facing my own mortality through having cancer and surviving cancer, I feel this sense of urgency about my own life, but I also feel this sense of urgency for other people, like not in a panicky way or not in a desperate way, but in a way where we're living our lives intentionally by choice and really putting our attention and intention around things that really matter, that are going to bring us the deepest satisfaction and joy in our lives. And relationships, beautiful, wonderful relationships of all kinds, and in particular partnership relationships, can be one of those greatest senses that can be one of those parts of life that bring the greatest sense of joy and fulfillment. So we hope that you've enjoyed this, and in a few minutes we'll start taking a few questions. But I wanted to just quickly review and remind you about the VIP package, because we have women, so many women have already decided to do the upgrade, but I've had a few people that have asked various types of questions about the package. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes and just quickly do a really quick review, and then we're going to take some questions. And PJ, you and I, we're going to probably have to move kind of quick through some of these questions,
Okay.
because we are both talkers, and
Yes.
we love talking about this stuff, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
Kyle, if you will also put the VIP package link in the chat box, just so people have it. If you're interested in the VIP package, it's still on the event special and will be through the replay process, and then it will expire. So I'm just going to quickly go over the VIP package. Most of you have seen this, so we'll just take a minute, just because there have been a few questions. So the VIP package includes all of the recordings from opening ceremony through this event, and all of the interviews in downloadable versions, so you can have the video and audio downloads. And many of you are going to want to go back and refer to or listen again or catch things that you've missed, and have this in your own personal library. But in addition to that, I have 4 really important bonuses and then a surprise extra bonus. And the first bonus is I refer to my man panel event, top listener favorites, top 12 of male experts from my previous man panels. So these are actually interviews for questions that I've asked men that go along the lines of some of the things we've talked about today. And then bonus number 2, if you're liking what we're talking about today, this is really an extension of what we're talking about today. I'm going to do a live virtual workshop called Be the One Woman and Attract the Right Man. And this is all about showing up in that feminine presence and being the kind of woman that stands out and captures the attention and inspires the attention from the kind of man that you want to attract. That's going to be really fun, and we're going to do that live. The third piece is my husband and I did a audio training and infographic combo on bringing out the best in a man, and I think you'll really like this. We go pretty deep, again, into this idea of really how to inspire and bring out the very best in a man. And then for those of you also that do the VIP package, you'll have an opportunity to have a one-on-one private coaching conversation with me on my Mr. Right session. I will say a lot of people have already purchased the VIP package and have scheduled their sessions. So I'm a couple of weeks out before I have much availability, but I've added time to my calendar to accommodate this, and I would love to connect with you personally. And then we have a surprise bonus that's part of the VIP package. And I won't say a lot about this, except this is a course that I created that helps you to know exactly how to increase your opportunities to meet the right guy, so you get to practice all of the cool stuff we've been talking about tonight in real life. So that's all included in the VIP package. It's available right now at the event special, but not for too much longer. So just wanted to remind you about it, and if it's appealing to you or you're thinking about it, now is a great time to do it. So with that having been said, let me stop sharing the screen here, and we'll start looking at and taking some of this Q&A. So bear with us for just a minute, because it takes me a second to pull up the Q&A stuff.
Michelle, while you're pulling up the Q&A stuff, is it okay if I add one piece?
Absolutely. And in fact, I see a really good question about you too.
Oh, okay, perfect. So, ladies, a moment ago, Michelle was at the very, very end of the 7 points that we were talking about. Michelle said, she said something to the effect of, I know that if you don't have a man in your life, you may not be able to practice these. I would say that practice them with everybody in your life. Practice them with all the men and ladies in your life. So it becomes really natural with who you are. So when a man feels that inherent femininity in you, what he feels is your integrity also. That you're not just turning it on for him to capture him, to win his heart, to win his favor, to win his attention. But instead, if it's who you already are, you won't have to turn something on and practice with him, because you will have decided these are the characteristics and the qualities that I really want in my life. And these standards aren't just about standards around relationships, but they're also standards around how I'm going to let other people talk to me, or about the work that I'm going to do, or the quality of work that I'm going to do. So find ways to apply these 7 principles in all aspects of your life and in all relationships, and it will be much more natural when that gentleman does enter your life. And he'll enter your life because of your integrity, because all of these are part of who you already are.
Yeah, and I'm glad you added that piece, PJ. I think there are aspects of this that you can't fully explore or express until you're in that partnership relationship. But your point is a very good one, that so much of this is about how you move and navigate through the world and really about who you are. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out and really appreciate it. And so there is a question here for you, PJ, and I wanted to ask this. This comes from Christine. So
Hi,
Christine, remember to email me so that I can send you the cards. And Christine says, could PJ please repeat what specific touches indicate to a man holding his hands, touching his chest? You were talking about that at one point during our presentation.
Absolutely. I love this. So when you're facing your man, right, and you hold his hands, both of his hands, and look him in the eyes, you're saying, I support you and I believe in you. When you touch his chest with both of your hands and look him in the eyes, you're saying, I feel safe with you. I feel safe in your arms. I feel safe in your presence. When you touch his upper arms, you're telling him, babe, you have the strength to do this. You can do this. You have the ability. You have the capability. And I know you can do this. You have it in you, because you're touching his upper arms, his muscles, his biceps, right? When you touch his face and you look him in the eyes, what you're saying is, babe, I love you. I support you and I love you and I'm there for you and you can trust me. And when you touch his face versus touching his hands, it's a different kind of support. When you touch his hands, it's, I am supporting you in the things that you want to do and I believe in you. But when you touch his face, it's a deeper love that says, I'm 100% here with you. We're connected. And it means something different when you touch his face. Play with it. It's really, really wonderful. It's really fun. And watch how he responds differently. And when a woman touches a man with that soft feminine, he will naturally want to protect her, because we love that. We're nurtured and fed by that feminine. And so we don't want to lose that. So we'll want to protect you and keep you in our lives.
It's really beautiful. And in dating or in, meeting men or flirting with men, I've noticed that just a slight touch, like on the forearm, is a way of expressing interest in kind of a, just a soft, gentle way. But a man is going to notice that. He's going to pick up on the fact that you've touched him and you've made that connection with him. And so touch, I think, is so powerful. And I'm so glad that you expressed that in that way. And I also, PJ, you and I have talked about this before in like our man panel interviews and that sort of thing. But I also love your advice about like when you're talking to a man, how different that conversation can be. Like if you're out for a walk together, side by side, or holding hands, where there's that connection, but it's not like we're sitting across from each other or having this big serious talk, because the talk, anytime you say, honey, we got to have a talk, the man wants to run for the door, right? He's like thinking, what did I do wrong? Oh boy.
Yes.
But having a conversation or connecting like that, even if you have something that you feel like you need to talk about, is a whole different, it creates that whole different environment and dynamic. And it's like you're exploring this together. It's not it doesn't feel like a negotiation or a confrontation kind of thing.
Yeah, and ladies, two things. One, when you touch him, you're telling him it's okay for him to touch you. Number two, this idea of communicating before you need to have the talk. So strengthening the relationship and going for walks and really nurturing that conversation and that connection before, and finding ways to communicate difficult things or things that could be a little bit sensitive for either of you in ways that are non-judgmental and are literally, by doing this ahead of time, you're saving yourself fights down the line. So strengthen the level of communication and that level of intimate communication early on in the relationship. Make sure that he feels safe early on in the relationship. And that guy probably won't want to go anywhere ever except into your arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, let's take 2 or 3 more, and we're probably going to have to wrap up today. Lisa says, how do you balance your head, heart, and hormones? So the 3 H words, I know I talked about that in the opening event, the importance of balancing the head, heart, and hormones. And usually what takes over and overrides everything else is the hormones, the physical attraction, the chemistry. And many of us, myself included, have had that experience of, completely losing our minds over someone because of the chemistry. And it's so fun and it's so exciting and it's so, like almost addictive, right?
Yes.
And I can remember the man I think I was probably very most attracted to initially was this man. We were completely mismatched, but I'm telling you, boy, when he would kiss me or anything like that, I completely lost it. I was just, I mean, I could completely not even keep my mind, any logic or rationale about me. I'd completely lost my wits about me. So usually that's the one that overrides everything else. So if you have a pattern of those kinds of relationships where it's like, like a burning, raging forest fire in the beginning, and then you somewhere down the road find yourself lying there in the smoke, dust, and ashes, wondering what in the world happened. The key is, if you want a different ending, you start at the beginning, right? So here's what I would recommend, because this is usually where the head gets overridden, the logic, the rationale, the common sense, and we think we're prematurely in love because of the physical attraction. We think we've got something deeper going than we've had time to develop. I always say that the one key piece is, if you have a pattern of those kind of relationships, it's okay, just recognize it and say, that hasn't worked so well for me so far, and if I want a different outcome, I have to change something in the beginning. So one of the keys to this is something we talked about already, is slowing down the pacing of the physical aspect of the relationship so that there is time to really get to know the heart and character qualities of this person, to determine compatibility, because chemistry does not necessarily equal compatibility, and to really get to know if this is someone that you really want to give your affection, your time, your attention, or a portion of your life to. Because what can happen is, if we let the chemistry stuff run away with it, then we can invest months, years into a relationship where we do end up feeling heartbroken, devastated, and really hurt. And women do bond with men through the physical, through sex, and so in a different way than men might bond. There are men out there, a lot of them, who can have sex and not develop that same emotional connection. And part of this is just our chemistry and our hormones and what happens. So particularly for a woman, it's important to manage the pacing. And I believe for the most part, a woman does manage the pacing. I mean, with the exception of things like rape, which that's a whole nother conversation. But in a normal, healthy relationship where there's attraction, a woman controls the pacing. And so part of this comes with you knowing your standards and what feels right for you and what timing feels good for you, and being able to even express that attraction by saying, wow, you know what, there's a part of me that would really be excited about doing something like that right now. What I know about myself, though, is that I need time to really get to know you in order to feel safe, in order to feel comfortable, in order to really enjoy it fully. And I would really like that to be a possibility. So it would be so much better for me if we got to know each other by spending more time together without getting physically involved right now. So you let him know you are attracted. You let him know that that might be something possible for the future and that you might be interested in it. And in the case of a man that is interested in having a real relationship with a woman, not just a one-night stand, he's going to be willing to wait. And again, you want to set yourself apart as that woman of high value with those high standards. It will make you stand out from those who are willing to compromise and do that sooner than they might feel comfortable.
Remember
Another
what I said.
thing, yeah,
Remember
can
what
I
I said,
just
right? Yeah,
one last thing I got to say before you jump in. I always say, approach a new relationship from a place of curiosity and observation. So you're curious about who this person is. You're curious about what the possibility might be, and you're observing the patterns and how this person is showing up over a period of time. Because how we really get to know someone is by observing and getting to know them over a period of time. As I mentioned in the opening event, I believe in attraction at first sight. Love at first sight is not something that is really possible because you don't really know the person. You might feel like you're in love if there's deep attraction, but you don't know them in a way that you can really, really love them. So I'll let you jump in now, PJ.
Forgive me, I didn't mean to
No,
step
you're
on.
fine.
So again, really quickly, if he's being he wants to advance the relationship sexually, and even if those hormones are like, oh my God, I do too, but your mind knows your old pattern. Remember, men bond, even good men bond to the sex, they don't bond to you. Women during the sexual encounter bond to the relationship. So the longer you wait, the more likely he is to stay around because he'll bond to you emotionally. And then the intimacy, the physical intimacy, becomes a bonus. So you can always say something like, I'm flattered, but as a lady, I like to wait. And leave it at that, right? So when you say I'm flattered, right, you can even touch his face or touch his chest, or right, you can say I'm flattered, but as a lady, I like to wait. And like, let's say you touch his chest, I'm flattered, and then you touch his face, as a lady, I like to wait a little bit longer. I want to know you better, right? And then he goes, oh, your standard just went so far up that my standards have to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so know your value and know your principles. Read that book and apply the principles that you create for yourself, and make sure that you are moving through those principles before you allow yourself to get too tied into the hormonal piece.
Yeah, yeah, very well said. Okay, let's take a couple more real quick. Let's see. Someone says, I was interrupted several times during this webinar and it was so powerful. Will there be a recording available for what I missed? Yes, we'll be getting that out as soon as we can. We have to download it and then upload it and get it all ready, but we'll be sending out a replay that will come out later tonight. And we will get that out as soon as we can. It'll be on replay tonight and also all day tomorrow. And that will be also when the VIP package event pricing will expire. Okay, let's see. Mariana says, how can I inspire a man to pick up the phone and call me rather than text me? Do you want to go first, PJ, or you want me to go first?
I would love to go first.
All right.
So I would say if he is only texting and not picking up the phone to call you, he's the wrong guy. And here's why. Because he is telling you that he communicates better over text and hides that way instead of actually being the gentleman that you need and want him to be, to step up and show up for you. Remember, raise those standards. If it's okay for him to text you, or it's okay for him to message you on one of the dating sites 2 or 3 times, but after that, he should want to move it forward and say, hey, I'd really love to maybe jump on a telephone call with you or meet you. And so raise your standards 2 or 3 times. And if you're on the 4th or the 5th time and he's still texting, you can simply reach out, and this could be the answer to your question. you could simply reach out and say, hey, I really love to communicate in person. I would love to be able to connect with you on the telephone. Are you interested in doing that? And if he says yes, and he's wonderful and delightful on the phone or wonderful and delightful in person, great. Then he's taken your cue. But if he doesn't, right, or he wants to continue to text you, or he's awkward on the phone, he's the wrong guy. What he's telling you is he communicates better through text than he does in person. He's not your guy. Raise your standards. Lift those standards up. You deserve better. You deserve a partner who is your equal and wants to inspire you as much as he wants to be inspired by you.
Mm-hmm. This is a question that comes up all the time with my private clients. And I think that this comes back in part to this idea that I talked about earlier about lazy daters. There's so many women that are willing to communicate with men in that way, but a lot of men have become kind of trained. You know, it's like the Pavlov's dog thing. They become kind of trained that this works and I can put in this minimal amount of effort and I can be in conversation with a woman. But as we've been talking about all through this, you're going to be that different kind of woman. You're going to be that woman of high value. And so I think you can invite this in a very feminine way that can inspire a man. So for example, let's just say you're communicating with a man online and you give him your number and he just starts texting you. I think you can say something which can be kind of flattering and sweet, but also invite him to kind of step into that, what would work better for you, by saying something like, I'm really enjoying our communication, and I think it would be so much fun to hear your voice. Would you like to give me a call sometime? Or you can say, magic phrases for me are, I'd be more comfortable with, or I'd really enjoy it if. In other words, like I was saying earlier, so many men do want to please a woman and want to show up for you, but sometimes they need just a little bit of a guidance or a little bit of gentle training, if you will, because they have been trained in some cases by other women that it's okay to do it that way, and they can get, you know, men are efficient. This is something I've learned about men. So those of you that have been listening to the interviews, you heard me talk about how my husband, he'll open cupboards in our kitchen and then he never shuts them again. And so I teasingly will say, honey, you know the cupboard goes back the other way too, right? But to him, it's like efficiency. He's just going to have to open the cupboard again next time he's there. And so men are efficient. They'll do what they think they need to do, and they won't do a lot more unless you, as a woman of high value, raise those standards and invite them to raise their standards.
I love that. I agree 100%.
Wow, our time has gone so fast. Should we do one more?
I'm in, absolutely. I'll stay all night.
All right. Let's see. There's so many questions here. Let's see. Yeah, I'll have you take this one first, and then I'll take this one too. Carrie says, can you give a few examples of up-leveling standards? I think we've given some examples, but let's see if we can give a few more. You want to take that?
Sure. Hi, Carrie. I would say that up-leveling your standards, some examples might be that you wait longer to become physically intimate, right? So I literally had a lady that I was talking with. She's a friend of mine, and she's like, I can't, these guys just like, you know, they just want to go out on 1 or 2 dates and then they disappear and I never see them again or hear from them again. And I was like, you're not sleeping with these guys, are you? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, on your first date? And she's like, well, I mean, sometimes on my second or third. I'm like, no. That's why they're leaving you. Even if they're good men, they bond to the sex and they're like, okay, all right, that's done. Thanks, I feel a lot better. And then he goes on with his life. No, don't do that. So one example is wait longer. And inside of that idea of physical intimacy, what are your standards for how long do you date him before you let him kiss you, right? And then do you let him come over to your house? Do you go over to his house? Does he drive you to come and pick you up? What are your standards in these areas? At what point do you introduce him to your family and your friends? These are standards, right? He has to meet. I would also say standards around communication. How do you want to be spoken to? if there's some kind of frustration, how do you resolve? I personally am not a yeller. I don't yell, I don't scream. In fact, I very rarely get angry, very, very, very rarely get angry. And so I will stay up all night and talk with you until we can figure it out. Does he own his part of the misunderstanding? Does he apologize? Does he listen, or does he interrupt? So standards around communication are really, really critical. And then how does he treat other people? This would be the third piece. When you watch him, what are your standards for how he interacts with servers, with people, if you're going to the movie, with strangers? Is he generous with his money? Is he patient with people? And then listen to how he talks about people afterwards. Does he speak highly of people, or does he speak a little bit maybe like he's upset with people, or they're not good enough, or they're not smart enough, or they don't do things right? Raise your standards to make sure that he treats people impeccably and he treats you impeccably. So those are some of the standards. Also, I would say, if and when you do go to his house, how does he keep his home? How does he keep his car? And I know women love to look at his shoes. How does he keep his shoes? Because when you look at that, you understand how he's likely to treat you and how he's likely to treat your home together. So these are some standards, I would say: how he treats other people, what his living situation looks like, how he communicates with you, especially around difficult topics. Does he listen? Does he interrupt? And then also set your standards, allow your standards to go out a little further around the physical intimacy. Okay. When I told that one lady, she was like, well, like, how long should I wait? Like a week? I was like, longer. She's like, 2 weeks? I was like, longer. She goes, a month? I was like, longer. She's like, 2 months? I was like, how about 3? How about 4? She's like, oh no, that can never happen. I can't do that. No man is going to wait that long. I was like, a good man will wait that long. The bad men are going to leave. And a good man is going to leave you if you do it too soon. Raise those standards. So how does he treat himself? How does he treat other people? How does he treat his stuff? How does he treat your stuff? How does he communicate with you? And is he willing to wait to become physically intimate with you? Are you worth waiting for?
Thank you, PJ. And I just want to add a little something to this here, because again, this is so important. How do you raise your standards? One of the key ways I think you raise your standards, especially in the early stages of a relationship, when you're just starting to get to know a man, you're just starting to date, is because you are a woman of high value, you are aware of where you invest your time, attention, affection, and you don't put all of your focus, time, attention, or affection into a man until you know how he's showing up and that he is consistently showing up and treating you well. Because what happens often for women is we meet a man that we're excited about or that there's chemistry with, and you know, we jump ahead a few steps in terms of giving him a lot of attention or time or focus or affection before he's really earned the right to have that level of attention and priority status in your life. And I think this is one of the key ways that you raise your standards, is you keep showing up as a lovely feminine woman, but you approach these new opportunities, like I said, from a place of curiosity and observation, and you are determining kind of the pacing and the timing that feels comfortable to you based on how he's treating you, how he's continuing to show up, how he's showing up in terms of treating you like a priority, and the time and attention he's putting into you before you prematurely put your time, attention, focus, energy into that relationship or that man. Because this is one of the biggest sources of heartbreak or disappointment, is when women think there's more happening than there actually is prematurely. And this is one of the way of holding your standards and of showing up as that high value woman. It's really, really important. And the physical piece, of course, is a big part of that too. So I want to ask Kyle one more time, if you'll just put the VIP package one more time in the chat box. And remember, if you want to get that, it's available on the event special. And PJ, I want to thank you because you have been awesome. You've been so great. It's been such a fun conversation.
Thank you.
And I think a really important conversation. And ladies, we hope that what we've shared tonight, some of the thoughts and ideas, concepts that we've shared tonight are reminding you of your own intrinsic value. It's not even about what you're having to do. It's just by you being the lovely, amazing woman that you are, the lovely, amazing lady that you are, and that you can inspire the right kind of man into your life. So that's our hope and our intention and our blessing for you tonight. And we're really so grateful that you joined us. And almost 2 hours has passed, and I feel like we could go about 4 more. But we won't.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because we love to give so much. We really want to make sure that you realize that you matter. You matter. And when you realize that you matter and you raise those standards, the men that start to come into your life will recognize that you matter also. And he will inspire you as much as you inspire him. You're beautiful, you're amazing, you're remarkable, and you get to breathe that in and be exactly what you were born to be.
That's beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
ladies, I'm so honored you've joined us not only tonight, but for the whole Ready for the Right Guy event. And do stay on my email list because I have a lot of really great things coming your way. And you're also going to want to be sure to check out PJ's site as well, pjswisdom.com, because as you can tell, he's an amazing fountain of wisdom and a beautiful human being. I find him to be very inspiring. I told PJ I'm really particular about who I invite to do these live events with me. And so I'm really honored that you were willing, able, and showed up with such generosity, PJ. And ladies, we're sending you lots of love here at the beginning of 2019.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye for now.